It's our mock draft episode. Come join us as we go through the ins and outs of our decision making at each stage of the snake. We'll show you how to construct a balanced roster, and you'll hear some of our specific player picks. Chris Welch of In This League joins us next to draft on Beat the Shift. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast, presented by Fangraphs. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always, Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Not bad. Watched a Mets exhibition game today, a little bit of a bullpen game. Mets had some great offense, back-to-back homers, Lindor, Mark Canha. It's just so fantastic that we're able to watch this now after the past month. You know, there was a time where we didn't know what was going to happen. How about you? What's going on?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the same Mets games as you are, and I can't wait till this Sunday where DeGrom and Scherzer are pitching in the same game. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, that is amazing. And now I don't want to toot my horn too much, but really good news. Fantasy Pros just dubbed the ATC projections as the most accurate projections for 2021. That's the third year in a row. So, hey, listening to a Beat Shift podcast, and we do ATC projections, so just want to make ourselves a little bit more credible, and there you go. And speaking of Fantasy Pros, want to welcome Chris Welsh from Fantasy Pros and the In This League podcast. Welcome to the show, Chris.
My friends, how are you doing? Thank you very much for having me, and congratulations. 3 straight years. No fluke, Ariel. Absolutely no fluke whatsoever for 3 straight years of being the top dog. And, you know, anytime Bogman and I over on the In This League Fantasy Podcast do any type of, analyzing of rank episodes and whatnot, we like to throw in projections, and we will throw in some Bat X, but we always are talking about ATC because what you do is the standard, my friend, in 3 straight years. So great job.
Appreciate that. All right, well, this is going to be a great episode. It's our mock draft episode. We'll talk a little bit of strategy, and then at the end of this episode, for the majority of the episode, we'll go through a mock draft. Both Chris, Ruvain, and myself will do a mock, and we'll talk through our procedures, and you'll get a little bit of the flavor of how we do it, and maybe that'll help you in your thought process. So just before we talk about our strategy, Chris, we were in a league this past Sunday, Tout Wars head-to-head. What are your thoughts on how you did, how it went, and overall what the league looked like?
Yeah, it was my second year in Tout. I was in last year, and it's definitely a test for me on a couple fronts. I don't particularly play points that much. It's not my favorite format. I think you had won it the year before, so you got to pick the format, and you went points. And I think Frank Stanfield won it this last year, and he picked points again. And then also on top of it, Ariel, because I got to ask you, I'm not an auction guy. Not that auctions aren't fun and they don't level the playing field, but I think it's my impatience. Like, how do you manage it? Like, you are a well-oiled machine, and you're kind of the guy that we all have to chase, and we have to, we can't, like, whenever I see you get values, I'm like, oh, why did we let Ariel get, like, why are we letting this happen? We can't let this happen. Like, I feel like you are such a meticulous machine that nothing bugs you, where I sit there and I'm like, oh my God, 4 hours? Does that not ever get to you?
No, I mean, we do a lot of auctions on this show here. Obviously, in the Beat the Shift podcast, auction is our specialty. No, it's really about patience. And, I thought last year's draft was really hot, and the prices were insane, and I didn't have a pick until the 30th pick. I did not pick a player in the first 50 picks. I don't know if you realize that.
No,
I into it.
I believe me, I was monitoring because I had some new strategy. I picked up a lot because this is, it's a big industry league. There's big heavy hitters in there. It was a little different last year because there were a bunch of us that were on a Zoom, so you kind of see some reactions. But it was my first time feeling out auctions, and this is a good thing, by the way. I'm saying, like, I'm sitting here kind of complaining about auctions. Auctions are not my wheelhouse, but it's very, very good, whether you're an analyst, a writer, or a consumer of fantasy, to do things outside of your wheelhouse. You find new enjoyment, you find new challenges, it makes you better as a fantasy player. So it's good. I embrace those things. Not that I don't sit and quietly complain about, oh my God, we're in hour 3 and we still have 12 more players to go. But the first year was kind of an eye-opener. And, you and a few others were putting on master classes for it. And this year was a lot different. And I was paying a lot of attention to a couple different things. And one of those was seeing you, and there were two other guys, I think, that when we got into like hour 2, really had not done anything and spent any money. And I was like, here we go. Here's the hammer, and here are the middle rounds. And I've got to be patient. And that was why, actually, I pivoted a strategy this year to do a couple things. I went studs and scrubs, and I purposefully wanted to be the first buyer, because typically, and anytime I've ever done an auction, the first top, as long as it's not like just some random guy they throw out, like a second baseman that's like towards the bottom or something, like Miles Straw. Someone throws out Miles Straw to start it off. But if you have one of the big name guys, I think most auction guys have always known this, is you get deals. You're going to get deals on that top guy. So I purposely wanted to be the top guy, and thank God Vladimir Guerrero was the first one that came out. He was a target of mine. And then I went pretty heavy studs and scrubs on both concentration on pitching, which I didn't concentrate on relievers last year, and then a couple big hitters, let you guys play in the middle where I thought it was going to be pretty difficult to compete. And then I just filled out my roster on the back end, knowing it was 12 teams, that there were going to be a bunch of good values. So I'm very happy comparative to my first year in tout against you.
You mentioned it being a 4-hour auction. It's like playing poker. You have to know when to, you don't have to play every single hand. You can be in every single hand. You can fold every single hand. Eventually, you will play some hands because you have to play them. And I think that's how you go about it. I think you have to bluff sometimes, and that's where you have to price enforce. And I was actually watching it as it was going on, and I saw that Aro kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And he was not nervous. I know, because I draft with him all the time. He's not nervous because he's going to wait for the prices to come to him, and that's when he makes his values.
And the couple things I just want to throw out here, for amazing analogy. And I used to be a poker player. I used to play all the time. So that's a funny thing about me not being, super into auctions, is I would sit for 14 hours straight and play poker. I think definitely like the cop out stuff you get is like, oh, you have a family and your parent and you're in your, like I would do better if I were in an in-person, like that's how I would do better playing poker in general with that. And I just want to point out, that was one thing I was very aware of, and I made part of my strategy was knowing how meticulous someone like Ariel was going to be, and also knowing like where that price was. Like I could use, there's a couple different auction calculators out there, the Fangraphs one being one of the better ones, that I, just as an example, I would use that to really know where some of you guys were going. And I purposefully, because I went studs and scrubs with heavy pitching and 3 big hitters, I was willing to pay a couple more dollars because I already knew what I was in for. Instead of trying to create values and play in the middle and let the draft come to me, I aggressively came at the draft, and I knew when you guys were going to stop. And it was almost to a T sometimes with the auction calculators I said, well, this guy's 26. If I go 27, bam, I got him, and I would. And I probably ended up paying $7 or $8 more across 7 players based on the prices that I could project. And that was okay, though, because I was going in and playing in the dollar bin on the back end, and things worked out. And the only reason, again, I did that was because it was a 12 team, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll say a few things. First of all, I think you did. You think you were smart to anticipate that I'd be in the middle and some others would be in the middle, and that maybe you tilted towards stars and scrubs so you wouldn't have to compete. I think that was a good deal. We generally discourage stars and scrubs in an auction on this show because
I did too. By the way.
Yeah. Okay. And one of the reasons are, if you have just dollars, you're playing in one bin. If you're playing all over and distributing them top and bottom, you're getting a bargain somewhere, everywhere. If you have more chances for a bargain, the more you distribute your cash around, and so on and so forth. Very important. I take the temperature of an auction when I get to it. If I see that prices are going ridiculously high, the inclination for most people is to say, oh, well, that's the price of people. You got to pay up to get people. It's actually the opposite. The higher values go above what the projections are, the more you should stay away, because then the whole middle that we're talking about between $17 and $23, that will come to you. I think I bought about 9 players between $17 and $21 and just accrued bang, bang, bang that whole middle. If the temperature is very cold and people are going at value, you really need to push very aggressively at the top and go for those $35, almost $40 players.
Yeah, and one of the things like I had a general idea about this, but it was exactly what you said. Taking the temperature of the draft is kind of how I went into this. I wanted to get the first player. I bid on Vlad. I might have paid $1 or $2 more, maybe a couple more. But then I don't know if you want to call it price enforcing, but playing in, I felt I got deals on my other 2 stud hitters in Bryce Harper and Shohei Ohtani. I just felt they went for much cheaper prices than I thought they would have gone for. And then I allocated my dollars to a couple starting pitchers. DeGrom I paid a tiny bit more for. I think I got a deal on Wheeler. There was some injury stuff out there there was some stuff out there that I think had people a little bit scared. I felt really good about that. And then I jumped in the closer pool. I paid a little bit more for Clase than I wanted, but then I think I got a deal on Trinan. And then that's how I pieced it together. Plus, I mean, I got like Freddie Peralta at a deal. So as much as I played studs and scrubs, it was stud hitters. And then I felt like I got a lot of pitching deals. And because it was at 12-man, yeah, it's not like the best thing on the planet to be rostering, as your second baseman, Josh Rojas, but I was able to do it. I got 2 closers, and it's a smart way you said that of feeling the temperature out. You want to have a plan. You want to know what you were going for, and I knew that there was going to be about 5 or 6 of you guys, especially you, that were going to be playing in that, as you said, $17 to $23 range, and I thought I would take the temperature and see what type of deals I could get on studs and scrubs, and I felt in my mind it worked out in my favor where I don't think it would have last year, like you said, because prices were, I don't know why, prices felt like they were nuts last year compared to this year.
I think they were even more nuts this year, but
you think they were even nuts?
Yes,
more.
Yes, they were, and I think you did a great job with that because I saw like the Ohtani deal was great. DeGrom was not so bad. Wheeler was a good price. You mentioned Clase was a good price for a closer. So I think you did a very good job of not paying that much more for your stars, avoiding the whole middle where everybody else is, and I think you did really good for yourself. I just want to remind, and we don't talk about points leagues that much on this show, but for people who do points, the tilt is more towards pitching in a head-to-head points league because they, especially where innings matter, and in this format, innings matter. Innings are 3 points each. So in points leagues, you really want to tilt towards innings. Pitchers who will pitch a lot, ace, near ace, number 2, number 3 starters. You need more of those than you would if your regular hitting pitching split is 70-30. You want to go 60-40 hitting in this one.
And we had also, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but in one of those, in like as you're adjusting, in one of the ways you check that temperature as you're going with these drafts, one of the things we saw happen as well was Jeff Ponce over at Baseball America. He went heavy pitching early, like heavy cost price. I don't know exactly when the picks were, but I feel like it was in the first 30 minutes. He had 4 of the top pitchers. He had, I mean, it was Garrett Cole, Corbin Burns. He had spent like $30-40 on 4 pitchers, and he built around that. So in a points format, he went heavy pitching. He kind of went stud pitcher hitting, and then it just built everything else around it where he could. So it's really about, could we have all lived in Ariel's territory? Probably not. And that's why, hopefully you can find your spot and take advantage to play different spots in these auction drafts. Or otherwise, I mean, hey, you could all just, play in that middle ground, and Ariel will not be pushed around, and there's a couple other people that won't be pushed around, and you'll get people that pay over prices. So, I mean, auctions are fun. I mean, the more that I'm talking about it, it's one of those things where it's like, after the fact, I had a lot of fun. It is definitely a grind, and I can't reiterate how much Ruben's poker analogy is fantastic, because it really is like that. You really have to have the patience, and you got to be comfortable not having a hand for over an hour and not losing your mind and going, screw it, I'm going in, I'm going to screw around, I'm going to play 8-10 offsuit, and let's see what happens. Like, you have to have that type of patience.
And Ariel, you mentioned taking the temperature of the room. There's always 1 or 2 people in the room who don't completely understand the format, and those are the people you try to, I mean, I hate to say it, but you're supposed to take advantage of them. And there are some people who, if you just don't know the format, you could throw out a guy and they can overpay for a player, and they don't even know that they're doing something wrong. They think they're getting a good deal on that player. And that's also, besides taking the temperature of the room, knowing the rules is just so important.
Yeah. And I put out Mondesi in the second round to see if anybody would bite, and they sure did. And I had Mondesi worth about $3, and somebody paid $13.
Is it 13? I was about to say it was 8. When you put it out, I was just like, I'm like, nope. I'm like, this is Ariel just trying to get people to pay up, and I could see some of those points. And that's obviously, it's a fantastic strategy, and for the most part, I think that's a common strategy. But it's great for yours specifically. Is you should and did spend that entire first hour throwing out guys you have no interest in, and make people get their dollars off the board.
And it's the opposite of what I usually do. I usually put out players that I do want, but the room was so hot that I'm like, forget it. I'm not going to buy a player now. Why am I nominating anybody I think I'm going to get? I nominated somebody I didn't. Now, you mentioned, by the way, Jeff Ponce. He spent 37% on hitting and the other 70 on pitching.
Exactly.
I actually don't agree with that strategy because I was going to say that it is tilted towards starting pitching, but it's also quantity over quality in this league. And I think he just put a little too many of the elites. And his quantity is low because he only has the upper ace and he has no offense to carry him on a week-to-week basis, meaning his results will be highly variable. If he has a couple of good weeks from his starters, he's great, but he doesn't have enough hitting points in order to carry him on a bad week. So that's
like there's three prospects like Torkelson, Riley Green, and Jeremy Pena. He was going for some dart. Those the pitchers he got, by the way, for anybody wondering, he got Garrett Cole, Shane Bieber, Max Scherzer, and Lucas Giolito. Those were his first 4 auction buys, and I was trying to be cognizant of that. As I saw, it was like, okay, I want pitching, but the big money is going there. He was being hyper aggressive, and I would be curious. I mean, we didn't talk about this before, so I don't know if you could pull it offhand. I'd be really curious at the guys that you thought were the hot guys. Who were the guys that were being overpaid for? I'd love to know a couple of those names if you had them off the top of your head, but I felt like I couldn't compete in guys like Cole and Scherzer, so that was why, to your point, it leans to pitching, but I went 3 hitters, and then I didn't. When I got Vlad, Harper, I got them early. Then I got Ohtani. I got Ohtani for like 20-something bucks. And then I sat back and I went pitching probably for the next hour and a half, maybe 2. And I put my focus on where I got, DeGrom, Wheeler. I was also able to get Kershaw and Peralta, which made me pretty happy with 2 good closers. It was just pivoting off of knowing your middle. And then obviously we had a guy that was going to take all of the good pitchers in Jeff.
Yeah, well, in terms of who's hot, just to mention, like Bo Bichette went for 34. Trey Turner went for 40, which sounds like steals from a roto perspective, but it's not true. We talked about steals don't really matter in these points leagues, and it's not because they don't accumulate points. They do accumulate points for steals, but it's not a category league. You don't have to roster a single steal.
There's no advantage to it. There's no advantage. If they get them, it's good, but there's no advantage to get the stolen base guys in that they are going to add to those. Like Miles Straw has really no value in these type of leagues when he doesn't do anything else.
So, yeah, it's about usually when you're talking about roto leagues, it's talking about roster construction. Well, if you don't get steals early, you don't have the availability of steals later. But the roster construction is much easier in this. You aren't talking about categories. You don't need steals. You just need points. And so because you don't need the steals, you don't have to pay a premium for the steals. You just pay what the value is. So that's one thing about
what's super interesting? I'd love to. I think you maybe already kind of alluded to this, but like I feel like a lot of people spend time talking about roto and versus head to head, blah blah blah. I'm not a points guy, and it's kind of exactly what you said. The devalue of it's not a total devalue of the player, but it does devalue some of the strategy of a player. Where I know there are some, especially like old school fantasy guys, that like points is the only true format to them, and I feel like head-to-head and roto kind of get like clash together, but I feel like the real true battle is points versus category leagues, and I'm just not a points guy overall. I do a couple points every single year. I do one on the CBS with Scott White, and then now I'm doing tout. But head-to-head and categories, I love the strategy. I like the gamesmanship and the play of building my categories instead of just building straight points.
What was curious though during the course of the auction is that I noticed I was listening to it, watching it, and keeping track of what Ariel was doing the whole time. And every player who changed teams in the offseason, in the last couple of weeks, they went for more than what our values were. And I was keeping track of it. I was watching the values. Trevor Story went for more. And he had just signed, I think, a couple of days before, or they knew that he was going to sign a couple of days ago. Nick Castellanos went for a little bit more than he would normally go. It just seemed that those are, because they're the hot names in the market and people are talking about them, they just happen to go for more than what their normal values are.
Yeah, I was actually I wanted Chris Bryant. I love the destination, obviously, and I kind of had a dollar number on him, and he blew past it. And I was texting Spore, and I was like, "Oh, Spore," I'm like, "You got him." And Spore was like, "Oh, I really like the price I got him at." And I was like, "Well," I'm like, I don't. I thought he went for maybe a little bit more where we were, but I suppose if you had money, it would have been a good price. But me and Spore were kind of, I don't know, we were the poor guys in the draft and later on. So yeah, it's a great point. All of those guys did absolutely go for more, and any risk whatsoever, everyone was very timid about and didn't want to pay the prices. That was why like the Wheeler one ended up being a value. Christian Yelich, not a great value, was one I got. I thought I got him kind of cheap. It was actually me price enforcing like a little bit, but I was happy ish to get him where I did. I think Bellinger went for like $8 more than him, which I thought was wild. But you know, risks and craziness, and it was a pretty wild 4 hours of drafting and insanity.
As far as free agents, by the way, until people sign with teams, usually, and this is not a this year, usually the prices are deflated, so they're decent buying opportunities because you don't know where they're going to end up. And of course, once they buy, the price just goes up. You know, anytime you have any news, player is out, player is back in, you know, you have that. DeGrom, of course, is going to go. He already, in the main event of the NFBC, he went number 6 in the very first draft. I mean, you know, once we saw that he's hitting, he's hitting 99, he looks sharp as ever. Well, you know, he's already up in the upper first round.
I think I paid. I mean, he's way more risky, but gosh, I think I paid $12 less than Garrett Cole for DeGrom, maybe.
Yeah, you paid 34, but the week before I played in labor, we got him for 22. So you know, what a good bargain, right?
And what would he go for now? 40 probably.
More, yeah.
And
the New York mandate now is gone for the vaccine thing. I know that Ariel was a little bit hesitant getting Aaron Judge because we don't know if he's going to miss half his games, and they just changed it. And now this week, for when people are drafting now, this week in Vegas, next week in New York City for the NFBC, I think all the prices are just back to where they would normally be.
That's a good one too. Like I actually really wanted Judge, but I completely talked myself off. I'd already had. I think this was after I got Ohtani. I could be incorrect about it. But like I really did want him, but I couldn't get into and he didn't even go for an insane price. But I strayed away because of that in this format, like a points weekly format. I did shy away.
I have Judge in almost every single league other than this one, so I'm okay with that. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about strategy in terms of drafting. So switching from points to roto right now. We're about to do a mock draft, but what is your general draft strategy if you have one, Chris? And, to add to that in terms of general, what we usually see in the past couple years is that saves, steals, and starters have been pushed up, and just wanted to get what your take on that is. What is the right time to push them and your general strategy?
I have definitely pushed more saves this year. I've liked some of the roster construction. I think it's rough. I've always kind of pushed back against paying really, really heavy prices on closers, but you know, there's been so many question marks, especially early on in drafts. And this is what kind of changed for me. There was so much volatility with the unknown during the lockout and doing all these mock drafts that you kind of put yourself in a situation where you're like, well, I'm just going to take one of those top or maybe two of the guys that we know that have gigs that have really liked the team construction and how I've done it, because there's a lot of good value in pitching late, that I've pushed saves up, I think, more than many other years. If you do a Fantasy Pros mock draft, you're going to notice I will probably like your draft if you take saves relatively early. That's what's been happening. Piece of P and I joke about that. Steals, I don't know if I'm overtly pushy on it. I don't want to overpay because I think a lot of the players that you should be targeting in the top end are already getting those steals. I've got some balanced players that are homers and steals later that I think can put it all together. I'm more than likely going to have a solid stolen base guy in the first and second round already that are going to kind of be my core. And then guys like Ahmed Rosario and Andrew Benintendi a little bit later I want. And I'm kind of fluid with starters. I'm not pocket aces. I like to maybe get one in the first 4 rounds. If I don't, I'm still not even too worried, and I will start targeting, maybe more constant guys like a Joe Musgrove if I have to have them as a stud. But more recent drafts, it's been like guys like Giolito and Musgrove. So I don't want to punt. I want to piece it all together, and I think if I'm paying for one thing more than I am any of the others, if we're talking the 3 S's here, saves, steals, and starters, it's actually saves this year. Because not only the volatility, but you've got a lot of rotational things. The Cardinals have said they weren't sold on Gallegos, though it's hard when you're going to open up with Jordan Hicks and Alex Reyes is hurt, so I think you're going to be stuck with him. But there's so many teams that don't seem to want to have a full commitment, and there's teams that look like they're going to have a closer and a leverage guy. Like a perfect example might be the Giants, where Camilo Duvall looks like he should be the closer, but he might be more the leverage guy. And that means like he could close one game in the 9th, but then he could come in the 7th in another game. Same thing could happen with Garrett Whitlock if he wasn't to break a rotation. So all I'm saying is there's a lot more question marks on the back end of closers that I don't find it as fun to try to gamble on that I would rather get me one of Clase, get me one of Iglesias, give me one of those stud guys to round out and not try to miss any categories.
Yeah, the general rule, I think, for draft strategy is pick the player that A, has the most value, but B, makes it easier for you to make decisions later on.
Great point.
If there's scarcity in positions or scarcity in statistics, pick the guy that gives you the most flexibility later on. Oh, in the 5th round, well, now I got more choices because I already have my base of steals. I already have my closer, right? The more you wait on some things, the more forced you are to, well, I need this guy now. You want to avoid that. That's the general rule. Ruvain, KDS, we talked a little bit about this in the season, but KDS is, of course, where you choose your draft slot. What is your optimal draft slot to pick from?
Between 6 and 9, I think that's the most optimal. That's the sweet spot because you can get a feel of the entire draft. You can get a feel of what's going on in the room. You'll probably be in the middle or close to the most of the runs. You'll know what you need. You have time to think about it. You don't have to reach for people like if you're on the wheel. You don't have to stretch for these people, and you can get the most value. I think you can get when you're in the middle there. You can get the most value, and you can shape your team from the very beginning. For example, in TGFBI, I had number 6, and that's what I wanted, and I got the first pick. I got number 6. I got Garrett Cole. Great. I got this, came right back to me, and I saw that a lot of pitchers weren't going, so I'm saying to myself, there's still some value there, so I actually went pocket aces, and I had this whole discussion with you. What am I going to do? How am I going to construct my team with pocket aces? But I knew that being in the middle, being at 6, I'm still going to get value when it comes back to with the hitters, which is exactly what happened, which is why it's easier to construct a team, even with pocket aces, if you're between, let's say, 6 and 9.
What about you, Chris?
I hate it. I was talking about my TGFBI team. I hate my TGFBI team. It's probably the team I'm going to hate the most, by the way. And I think I had 3 in that one. I went I have the most insane, beautiful outfield, but things did not come to me how I wanted, and it was probably one of my poorer drafts. But from a KDS perspective, yeah, I think 5 or 6 is a really, really good spot right now. Part of that, and it might be me alone here, especially Ari, I imagine you're not going to like this one, but because I can get a little bit more risky, is I really like Acuna in that spot. The idea of him missing 2 weeks is not ideal, but the set date of the 21st for him to DH, that, the advent of the DH is like a huge bonus for him to get his bat back in the lineup. I think you have an option for a guy like that. I mean, even your projections have wild numbers on him, and that's missing like 40 games. And it theoretically doesn't look like he could even miss that many games with the DH now and them talking about him coming back. But I like that 5 or 6 spot because I think things fall to you in a really fun way. Whether it is, hey, I want to go with a Garrett Cole, I want to go with the top pitcher, or, there's a contingency of people that don't really love Vlad, even though he's a 4-category monster. Vlad could fall to you. Maybe the heavens will rain down on you a beautiful Jose Ramirez. 5 or 6 has a lot of great opportunities. And it's actually a really interesting point Ruvain was talking about where, like, at that middle range, you really do set yourself up for kind of a value spot where both wheel sides, I think people like the wheel because it's a control spot, but you do have to be comfortable. I think the mindset on that is you've got to be comfortable to not be like stuck to ADP or value, or, oh man, should I take this guy here? Like, if you are comfortable, like, I'm going to get my guy, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to double tap closers, I'm going to double tap pitching, that's a spot for you. But it's not really a value spot, because people start to get worried when they've got 5 or 6 picks there. But that 5 or 6 range really does feel like, yeah, some things can kind of fall your way. So 5, 6, 7, right in that range, I think that's kind of a really good sweet spot for KDS.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on almost everything you said. If you're in the middle, you, of course, don't get sniped by the closer runs or the whatever run you're in, pitching run, because you're in the middle. When it comes to your turn, you get to see what has transpired. You get an information pass. You make a decision, and then it goes and it comes back, and you get another decision. Another piece of information, you make a decision. If you're at the wheel, then you only get one bit of information, and you have to make 2 decisions. So there's an information gap. And yeah, every time you lose a half round, like if you have to make a pick on the wheel, you might have been able to get that same guy half a round later. So you lose that extra half a round of value the whole way down. It's not just the first round. This comes through to you the entire draft. So you're losing value after value. But it is better to be a little bit earlier in the first round than a little bit later in the second round. There are some very, very good values a little bit earlier than later. So for that, I agree with you. And by the way, I have no problem with Acuna. I don't think he's that risky because he's coming back. I don't have any performance issues, and the injury issue is pretty comebackable. And, the season starting a week later, that helps him also. I have no problem with Acuna this year. Last question before we go to the actual mock draft is, I'll ask 2 and 1. When is it time, you think, for you to really ignore some value and go for your either favorites or targets or upside players? And since you're a prospect guy, what are your thoughts in general about drafting prospects in redraft leagues?
I kind of want to almost blanket tell you, like, there's any time is the right time to go and get your favorites for players if it makes sense. But obviously you want to have the correct context for that. I think that starts to happen. I would actually clump favorites and targets together, maybe more than the upside players. And I might say favorites and targets probably start to click in post, I don't know, 5 or 6, 5th or 6th round or something like that. I mean, I'm very much like best available player early on. You can build around the core that you're trying to put together. So maybe, past the 5th or 6th round, you start paying attention to those favorites and targets. And, if they got to go around earlier, that's okay. Upside players, at least in my brain, how you say that, tends to kind of be a little bit later in the draft, where it's like, do I want to take this? Do I want to take Michael Brantley, the steady Eddie, or do I want to go upside on Joe Adell? Which decision do I want to try to make? And so that's probably like post 12th round, 10th round, something like that. And then as far as prospects go, the irony as a prospect person, I'm not super big into prospects in redraft leagues. I think what happens, and I see it so much, and it's very NFBC centric though, is that very early on, the big, 50-man rosters and stuff like that, you get people that get hyper-focused, industry guys that get hyper-focused on maybe a guy that they're going to get later in the year. So people start talking about all of these prospects. And it spills over into the redraft for just the normal person that's playing. I'm not saying you're not normal if you don't play NFBC, but like a lot of people listening might just play 12-man leagues. It's okay to play a 12-man league and not have a 15-man draft champions league that's got $150 on the line each person, blah, blah, blah. You could play like normal leagues. And the prospects start to spill in there, and then people are like, oh man, should I take Bobby Witt at 50? Should I take Julio Rodriguez inside the top 200? What if he comes up? What about the pitching prospect? Who are the best ones? For the most part, in a standard 12-man league, you probably shouldn't take any prospects. Bobby Witt is the exception this year. I believe he will break camp. It's almost without question to me. But I saw people early on taking like Julio Rodriguez inside the top 200, and I would chastise it. I'm like, this is crazy. Now, I legitimately has a chance to break camp now as things have gone on. But the swings in prospects, the return in prospects in the first year, it's pretty minimal, especially when you pay high costs. They're better waiver wire fodder than anything else. So where everyone's like, oh man, got to get the prospects. Who should I draft? I'd say pass and play the waiver wire. If you have a draft now and you can get off the waiver wire Nick Lodolo, who might break camp with the Reds, that's really good. Or play into the second week and start saving. Why don't you draft a really good team of constant players so you can save your fab and you can drop it on a couple stud prospects that come up between May and June. That's how I'd rather do it. The only two that I have major interest in this year are Bobby Witt, because I think he's going to push 2020, and I don't think it's an insane cost, but I wouldn't pay for him over a lot of the other shortstops. And I do think Spencer Torkelson is a guy that is going to break camp. But again, he's a guy that's like post 200, maybe 250s or something like that. And that would be one I would be willing to bet on as well. But for the most part, I'm against drafting because everybody overdrafts their prospects, and I don't like doing that.
Ruvain, I think the only time you and I have ever drafted a prospect in a very deep league was Trey Turner when he first came up, and I think that won us the league. But that is the exception, not the rule. I almost never draft a single prospect because they're almost going to assuredly bust. What's your take?
Well, I don't necessarily think they're going to bust. I mean, you have to see what their playing time is going to be, because a lot of these guys in prior years, they're going to start the year in the minors. If they start the year in the minors, you're not getting any value out of that spot, and you're losing value from that spot if you pick them too early. What the one prospect who I think is going to have good value this year, because I know he's going to have playing time, is O'Neal Cruz. He only had a cup of coffee at the end of last year, but there's no one else on that team. He's going to play. He's going to break camp with the team, and you know he's going to get playing time. If you're willing to spend on him and not overspend, that's actually, again, I'm going to mention TGFBI. He's the one guy I actually reached for. I reached for him in the 14th round. So I waited until that. Now, I'm talking about targets. I try to target relievers. I try to target closers, and I have a basic idea using knowing exactly where they're going to go in the draft. And I'd say, you know what? Okay, I want to get a closer. I don't like paying for saves, and that's too much for saves. I don't like the top guys. I was paying for a 7th round. I was planning a 7th round closer. I was planning a 10th or 11th round closer, and those are actually my targets. So I'm not actually target main guys, but closers I'm going to target. I feel that that's the best way to go, because I'm targeting the guys who have safe set roles, even if they're not the top tier. So I'm a little bit different than you, Chris. I don't like going for the top guys and having that stability there. But a guy like Jordan Romano, who falls sometimes to the 6th or 7th round, I can get so much more value in the first 5 rounds getting other players and just letting Jordan Romano come to me. He's got great stuff. There's no one else on the team right now to close, and he is the guy. So I have no issue doing something like that. But then you can say, all right, yeah, you can do the same thing with Aroldis Chapman, who's going maybe a round earlier or a round and a half earlier. They just announced, Aaron Boone just said that Aroldis Chapman is going to be pitching in the 8th inning sometimes now. Not in a regular game, and I don't think I want that. So, closers are very fickle. I think closers more quantity over quality, and especially if I think those are the ones you have to target. Just get a lot of darts for closers and for the prospects. If you know they have assured playing time coming out of spring training, grab them.
Just about O'Neal Cruz, I heard recently that he may not actually break camp. Probably will come up really soon, but I heard he's going to be in the minors to work on his defense for possibly playing outfield, if you've heard that before. So I don't know that he's actually going to be up. Actually, the prospect, you mentioned Torkelson. I think I'm more interested in Riley Green than Torkelson.
Love Riley. Riley might be a better overall prospect. It's just I don't believe he breaks camp, but I think he's a better fantasy asset
where's Torkelson going to play with Miguel Cabrera and Candelario there?
First
base.
Miggy's
already said it. Actually, Miggy publicly said
DHing?
Yeah, Miggy publicly said he wants Torkelson in the starting lineup, and he will gladly DH. And that was one thing that really jumped out to me. And if you've looked at it in spring, that is exactly what they've been doing. Whenever they have the main lineup out there, Torque is in the lineup.
All right, so there you go. There you have it. Our prospect guru here, Chris Welsh, with the tip on Torkelson. All right, when we come back, we'll set up the mock draft, and we'll do it. We'll be back here in a second on the Beat the Shift podcast. All right, we're back on the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. On to our mock draft portion of this episode. To set it up, we put a poll up on Twitter as to what are your favorite scoring and favorite aspects to put in, rules to put in leagues. So what we have here is we have a pretty standard roto, but with an OBP format. We are OBP format today. So there you go. We will have only one catcher. We'll have one utility, so not a 2-catcher league. 5 outfielders, though, so it's deep in the outfield that will come to play. Pitchers, 4 starters, 2 relievers, to any. So a little bit of a control on the number of pitchers there. We're also going to do one bench spot, just to have any. So it's not that deep in the bench. We won't go all that many rounds. After that, there's going to be a corner and a middle, so pretty much a standard roto roster with one catcher and a little bit of limit on the pitching. All right, so we have come to this, and we're going to be using the Fantasy Pros. The Fantasy Pros software here that you Welsh are familiar with.
The Draft Wizard.
The Draft Wizard, and there we go. So what we'll do is we have the draft order. There's a 12-team draft. I'm actually number 1. They randomly assigned me to number 1, which I don't like, but hey, that's what we'll do. Ruvain is pick number 7, and immediately after that is Welsh at number 8. So you'll snipe each other, I'm sure, the whole time, and stay away from me.
Yeah, great.
All right, with the first pick, I am going to go with Trey Turner. I think it's pretty now, you could argue Juan Soto, but again, I like to get the categories here. I think Trey Turner is a stud in almost every single category. He'll have plenty of homers, plenty of runs. That Dodger lineup is enormous, so I'm just going to go Trey Turner right there, number 1. After that, Soto, Garrett Cole is picked. Burns, Vlad Guerrero, Jose Ramirez. Ruvain, you're on the clock.
Oh, this is kind of easy. In an OBP league, the next guy on the board for me has to be Bryce Harper. I mean, he gets on base a ridiculous amount. It's in a better lineup now. This is just a no-brainer here. I mean, you could go Bo Bichette if you want to, but his OBP is not that great. You want to go Trout? I guess you can. But, I mean, Bryce Harper just is a monster, and he can have an MVP year any year. So that's very simple, so that's who I'm going to take.
It's interesting, too. One of the things I feel like you kind of did, Ariel, is something that I've been talking about that, like, I do think when you do an OBP league, it gets a little inflated sometimes. People get very, very hyper-focused. They're like, oh, my God, I got to get all the OBP guys. And it's like, well, at the respect of, like, here's a perfect example of this. Great OBP guy Mike Trout is. But at the behest of me not getting all those homers and stolen bases for a guy, let's say Ronald Acuna, I just don't see the value in going crazy about OBP. I'll try to pick it up a little bit later.
Yeah, and you know what? I passed on Juan Soto, and I did that
that's
because...
the other point, yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's roster construction, and maybe that was the wrong decision, but hey, that's it'll be easier for me to find steals. I don't have to find steals. It'll be easier for me to construct my roster later, and Trey Turner is no slouch here. So I'm not giving up a hell of a lot. Who did you take with your pick here?
I took Acuna. I'm following in with what I said.
Okay.
Power speed combo. It works in his favor. I've got him right around a top 5 player, and I got him at 8. It's a good value. Obviously, kind of like Ruvain said, like I could have taken Trout. That would have made a lot of sense, and that would have been probably a solid pick. Bichette was still out there, but I like the advantage I get with Ronald Acuna, and that's what I did.
And both are out, along with Freeman and Ohtani and Trout, Bueller, Betts, Kyle Tucker, Byron, Buxton. Wow. Welsh, you're back up again.
Wow, Buxton went in the second round? Ooh, I must be screwing with the system or something like that for that to happen. Well, you know what? We're kind of in this is another one of those situations where, this one, I got 2 guys that I'm staring at, and I'm going to do this and completely ignoring the OBP side of it. I just think this is a great value right here. I'm going to take Ozzie Albies. Get my second base spot, get a couple Braves here, stolen bases, homers, focused on all those categories. Try to pick up a little bit of OBP later, but I was staring at Jacob deGrom and Rafael Devers both. But deGrom was the one I was staring at, but decided to take that position player.
Ruvain, you're next.
Thank you so much, because my next pick is going to be Jacob deGrom.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not? He's looked electric. Even if he pitches 140 innings, our value for him is still through the roof. He could be the best pitcher in baseball this year, just pitching 160 innings. So there's no question in my mind he is an easy. I was looking at Rafael Devers actually also, and Ariel, I think if he falls to you, you will probably take him because he's high up on our value as well. But for me, it's very simple. It's Jacob deGrom.
Okay, deGrom it is. And let's see who the next people pick. It is Luis Robert, Scherzer, Devers, you're right, Went, Woodruff, Starling, Marte goes to me. We talked about him a little bit before. Aaron Judge, I told you it's a very deep outfield here with 5 outfielders. That guy walks quite a bit. He's a close to 40 home run guy, 100 RBI guy. OBP projected very, very high. I have him projected for an OBP of near 370. I think Aaron Judge is very clearly the guy, and I'm going with him. My next pick, I'm back-to-back here, so right around here. I could go with a pitcher. I don't love any of the pitchers on the board right now. There is an OBP stud on the board still in Matt Olson. The only question is, do I take him because there's a lot of good first basemen below, but to me, I have his value so much further over a lot of the others. I'm going to go with Matt Olson. So again, I usually like to go with the categories. I usually like to go with the ability to help myself later, but Olson, I have such a high value. Another 40 homer, 100 RBI, 365 OBP, and even still in a good lineup, I'm going Matt Olson here. Next couple of picks are Robbie Ray, Manny Machado, Zach Wheeler, Shane Bieber, Salvador Perez, to Ruvain.
Interesting. Okay. We have ATC values here, and that's what I'm going to be going by. And I'm looking at my list here, and it happens to be in this OBP league, the next guy up there, I have an option of two people. I have Yordan Alvarez and actually Pete Alonso, because Pete Alonso is pretty high in this list. Yordan Alvarez qualifies in the outfield. I think he qualifies in the outfield here.
In this draft, he does.
Which is good, but I think that the Matt Olson thing that you mentioned about, I kind of sort of need that. I think I'm going to need a first baseman, and I think after Pete Alonso, there is a little bit of a drop, and that's what you have to look for when you're trying to draft somebody. Look at the player that you're staring at, and look who's going to be available for you in that position later on. You check that for all the positions, and you'll be able to know whether or not it's worth it to take it. Because if you don't take, let's say you don't take Pete Alonso here, I may end up taking Josh Bell or end up with Rhys Hoskins, which is not the end of the world. But I like Pete Alonso. I think I have him on almost all my teams anyway, so my pick is going to be Pete Alonso.
All right. I got to say, Ruvain, like I did for DeGrom, I say thank you very much because I will take Jordan Alvarez. I'm very happy that you did that one. But it's a great pick, and I agree with everything you guys say there. Jordan Alvarez, good OBP guy, big power, adding to the big outfield we've got to pair together. I also would have said, not that he would have lasted, but I would have loved to swoop up Matt Olson and just take the all Braves team like I've apparently been doing recently. So I love both of the picks there, but Jordan is a pretty easy one for me.
All right, going next after Alvarez, Julio Urias, Wander Franco, Teoscar Hernandez, Austin Riley, Giolito, Aaron Nola, Nolan Arenado, Cedric Mullins, and now back to you, Welsh.
Ooh, I sure wanted Giolito, and now I don't love the tier of pitchers that are left, and this makes me want to pivot a little bit, and I'm almost doing exactly what I did in another mock draft here, and I'm trying to avoid it. I one time did Albies and Whit Merrifield to really dominate in stolen bases, but they're both not great OBP guys, so it's something I'm a little bit cognizant of in this, where it's like, adding him to get those stolen bases. It's not a necessity because I've got Albies and I've got Acuna already with one big power bat. I hate moving on the pitching, but you know what I think I'm going to do? And I'm going to cross my fingers that some stuff happens in these next couple rounds. I'm going to follow the trend that you guys did because we're about to take a big old teardrop off of first baseman, and I'm going to take Paul Goldschmidt. A lot of power, good OBP. It's going to kind of build out that offense, and I just don't want to fall behind because I love what you guys both did, so I'm going to follow suit.
Good choice. Ruve?
Yep. I think that's. I may have even taken him again. If there was a corner spot, I probably would have taken him because I'm a very big value drafter, and I go strictly by the numbers. I'm not really. I try not to have the name of the player influence me who I'm picking. And after saying that, I think I'm going to go with George Springer here. We actually have him. I'm looking at the rankings here. He's actually the highest guy value-wise on the board. He's an outfielder as long as he stays healthy, but you can't pick somebody thinking that they're going to get hurt. You're thinking you're going to pick them based on what your stats are and what you think is going to happen. So I'm going to take George Springer here.
All right. The next couple of picks in between, we have Marcus Semien, Xander Bogaerts, Whit Merrifield, Tim Anderson, Josh Hader. I was actually looking at this next guy, Trevor Story, the whole time as my next pick. Now, by the way, remember I passed up on Soto to start, but I got two instead. I took the stolen base guy, so I didn't have to worry about stolen bases, and I got two big OBP guys right in a row. I think that makes up for the Soto, so I'm actually really happy. But this pick right here, Trevor Story, he's my next guy. I mean, he's got a tremendous OBP. Still a little bit of steals, so I'm still pounding the steals, but I'm still getting enough categories all the way across. He's another one of those guys high up on the value list for me. Don't have a middle infield yet, so Trevor Story is going to be on my team.
That was who I almost took over Goldie. It was Story and Goldie I was staring at, so that's a great pick.
I was looking at it the whole time. Okay, now talking about picking our, I have 4 hitters already, and I don't see a fantastic starting pitcher that I like, but scarcity here, you need 2 relief pitchers, and it's already the 5th round, and I think the value is quite up for Liam Hendricks here.
Oh, come on.
It's maybe I don't even think it's a big drop. I have him as not passing up more than 3 or 4 players on the list. So I'm going to corner the first reliever, the first saves guy.
Second.
And second was Hader just went. Okay, so even a bigger reason to take Hendricks because I think there's a big drop from Hendricks to everybody else. So it's Hendricks for me from the drop, from the scarcity. Very, very simple for me. So I took Story and Hendricks.
Yep. That's exactly. It would have been my pick, too. That's why I'm upset about that.
Okay,
Yep.
Lindor, Alcantara, Raisel Iglesias. See, by the way, the fact that Iglesias went right after means I super made the right pick, right? I'm happy when they take a closer now. Gausman and Lance Lynn just went 2 starters. Ruvain, it's up to you.
See, now I'm starting to get a little worried because I don't have any steals on my team, and that's I mean, Springer will still a little bit, Harper a little bit, but I'm getting a little nervous about that. I'm looking around. I really don't see many people with steals yet. So I'm getting a little nervous about that. So I'm not saying that I'm gonna punt steals at this point, but I don't think I'm gonna just pound it yet. I may just go later in the draft for that. I'm looking around. I guess I need an infielder. I don't have any middle infielders, and I see. Let's see. Simeon was taken already. Was he Simeon? Let's see.
Yeah, he went a while ago.
Yeah, he went a while ago. Oh boy. Okay. I'm gonna follow you. I'm gonna take the next saves guy because I have a starter already.
Wow.
I think I'm gonna chase saves just a little bit. Iglesias went.
Mm-hmm.
And because Iglesias went, I think the next guy on the list is Clase. Is he still available? He is.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to take Emmanuel Clase here.
Ugh, God, you just
Welsh, was that your pick?
Rip my freaking heart out, both of you guys. I almost did it the last round because I thought I could get away with this. I have Iglesias over. I'm sorry, I have Clase over Iglesias right now. So that one tears me up.
And by the way, mention that they're all going together. I always talk about relative market premium. When Clase and Iglesias go right in the same round, and I'm only picking 3 picks over, the biggest relative market discount in this case was Hendricks. That's why I'm happy. Of course, if all those other guys drop to the 7th round, well, then my guy would be expensive. Sometimes hard to know in a draft whether you're going to have a premium or a discount, but there you go.
Yeah, I went with Edwin Diaz, and if he lasts, I am going to double tap him. Yes, he did. I'm going to double tap him with Ryan Presley. So those are 2 quick picks here. I love the Jordan Romano one. Romano would probably he's in that same crew there, but you guys killed me with both of those closers, Hendricks, Clase. I want to get 2 of them before I have a starting pitcher, and now I've got both my closers in the Astros, and I've got the Mets closer. So, win teams, probability out there, strikeouts. I'm happy with it, though I would have liked Clase, but 2 closers locked in.
Okay, so at this point, when your team starts to lacking steals, it's a good question. When do you start looking for steals if you don't have it? You're already in the 6th round. Do you just wait, Chris, or do you try to attack it? Do you try to spread it out? What do you really do here?
I think there's still plenty of balance. I don't think there's a ton. I mean, there's one clear guy on the board right now, like Randy Arozarena, if you want to play the 20 stolen bases, and I think he's in relative value space. But this is just me. I know some people would start to focus all right, I'm going to go get myself a Miles Straw, or God forbid, a Mondesi. I don't even know if he's still out there. You could go with Mondesi, really, if you wanted. But I think there's still some really solid 10 to 15 stolen base guys that my priority would just be picking up 4 or 5 of those and picking and going through that space than trying to overreach. But I think a Rosarena is in that value spot right now, and that I would not be afraid to be taking him.
I do agree with you on that. However, I am a value guy, and I'm looking at the numbers. The top guy on the board is Brandon Lau. According to the ATC numbers right now, it's Brandon Lau, so I think I'm going to go with him. He gives you power. He'll give you a sprinkle of stolen bases, so it's not too bad. And I'll just have to address my stolen bases later in the draft.
All right. I was actually looking at a different guy who I think really helps in an OBP league, and that is Joey Gallo in the outfield.
God dang it. Get out of here. Go away.
Yeah,
Ariel.
I was looking at him the whole round, and even though I don't have a pitcher yet, 6th round, I'm not going to pass up this fantastic bargain. So Joey Gallo is mine, and because I'm the next pick, well, I can go for another batter. I don't love any other batters here, and I do need a starting pitcher. I'm a big Max Fried guy. I think that he is just a solid guy to get stats. Right now, I'm looking for the quality. I'm looking for some quality, but I need some quantity. So I don't want to go too far without getting some kind of pitching reliability. I think he's reliable enough, so I'm going to go with Max Fried right now just to get something in the pitching, as I already have plenty of offense. I mean, I got tons of power and steals already. All right, on to Ruvain. Tatis was just taken, by the way. I guess some of these are based on some old rankings, but Mondesi went also, and Musgrove Webb.
Ugh, Musgrove.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, if you were going to take Max Fried, he was going to be my next guy. I'm
by the
very
way, just to stop you, sir, I heard you side Chris on Musgrove. Should I have taken Musgrove over Fried?
I mean, I'm a Musgrove guy over Fried, but I think they're the same tier, and that it's just about balance of what
I do think, though, that the whip is a little bit more reliable on Fried, and I know you get more strikeouts out of Musgrove, but I always prefer early on to tilt a little bit towards the whip because I know I can make up strikeouts later on in the draft or later on in the season, actually. So I like to tilt a little bit more in these instances. But
I one of my problems is I was just over at Padres camp. If everyone doesn't know, I live in Arizona, so I've been out at these, and I got to see Clevenger and Musgrove throw some side sessions together. And just like standing 15 feet away from Musgrove as he's just pumping them in to Hosmer and Machado. It's just one of those things you're like, oh yeah, this guy is a physical presence. He's kind of the intimidator of that pitching staff as well. And it probably pushes me a little bit.
Okay. Ruvain, sorry.
Well, my next pick, I already did it. It's going to be Jonathan India. I'm going to try to sprinkle in the stolen bases here. I'm going by value. I'm looking at the value. He's another top middle infielder. I have 2 second basemen, which is fine. A lot of drafts, I tend to go with a $1, either shortstop or middle infielder anyway. I'm going value, and that's what I'm going with.
Okay, Welsh?
I got to tell you, I'm shocked at what we're all doing, and we are all going to be just swimming in the same pool here because we're all not doing the pitcher thing right now. But there's just not great pitchers to choose. I mean, you got Fried, you got that tier, and there's still not. Like, when we talk about the value-based drafting, I see a couple hitters, and I'm just like, I just exponentially like these guys better than me reaching for a hitter. So I just don't feel compelled, even though I know I need a pitcher.
So, but I mean, the only problem, though, with doing that, though, Chris, is that when you, like, if you're talking in auction dollars, it comes a point where if you don't get any pitcher, you're going to go way too far percentage hitters versus pitchers.
And I can't. I can't let myself do that. But I've got 2 hitters on here that I'm staring at.
Okay.
That I think I'm going to jump on, and I'm going to jump on this one because I need a third baseman in the position moves down. I'm going to take Chris Bryant. Yep,
yeah,
I'm a Chris Bryant guy.
Also.
Colorado, solid OBP. He's just a solid OBP guy. And then coming back, one of the Charlie Morton went, and that just hurts me.
Yeah,
that was the guy. And then one of my other hitters is still there. So you know what? Mocks are meant to experiment, and I completely agree with what you said. I can't do this for much longer, but I think there's still one really good value, even though position flexibility is not his. I'm going to go with Giancarlo Stanton, and I'm going to get the OBP with big power to keep padding those numbers. I've got both my closers, which is good, but I've got lots of homers, lots of RBI, lots of run. Also, I've got some stolen bases in there, and OBP is not doing too shabby, so I think I'm doing okay on hitting, but I'm going to have so much work to piece together this pitching staff here.
Ruvain?
Okay, well, that's what I'm thinking. I have it down to 2 players right now, and if they both end up to me, I'll be happy. But for now, I'm going to take another middle infielder. I'm filling up a middle infielders here. I'm reaching a little bit because it's stolen bases. Javier Baez. He can go 20-20. He can steal more than that. He's the stolen bases. He solves one of my problems that I have already here in the 8th round. So I'm going to take him and hope that the pitcher that I have in my queue will not be taken by you, Ariel.
Well, we'll find out very soon whether that's true or not. Okay, up to me. Well, the hit I was looking at Brian Reynolds. He just went. The pitcher I was looking at, and I really need a starting pitcher, is Carlos Rodon. Was that the guy?
Yes, it is. He's in my queue. Bye-bye.
Carlos Rodon. He's high up here, and I mean the Giants believe in him. We had Brian Bannister, pitching coach, on the Giants, and he sounded fantastic, and they know what they're doing. So I went with him, and suddenly I've got Fried and Rodon to start my rotation. So I like that. Not
too shabby.
Not too shabby as well. All right, looking down here, I actually have Shane McClanahan decently high up. No, not high up enough compared to some of the hitters.
Okay, good. Leave the pitchers alone because I'm looking at another pitcher. Thank you.
Agreed. Go away.
Now, my thing is when it comes back to me, Chris, I think you're going with a pitcher, so I'm gonna narrow down to 2 of the pitchers, and I hope that neither of them are gone while they're there, so we could talk about it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small pool that we're fishing at right now. Though I would say, like, there's a couple unique guys, and then it's just going to be a big old clump that we're going to start drafting from.
So I told myself before the draft that it's a bad idea to take a catcher in a 1-catcher league early, but it's an OBP league, and what's staring at me is Yasmani Grandal, who is phenomenal in OBP league. So that is an option. There's also Big Joey Votto out there who's tremendous in OBP leagues. Yeah, I have a first baseman, though. Could wait on that. Anything other pressing? There's no really pressing needs I have, so I can really stall on that. I'm thinking about McClanahan. I'm thinking about him and just beefing that up. Is Manoah out there? Oh, Manoah's even better. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Alek Manoah. I have not taken him in any draft yet, but he is one of the bigger pitching values on the board, and I'm just gonna go right with that. And actually, if anything, I'm light on pitching, and now I've got 3 excellent pitchers. So I went middle, and I went Manoah. So pitcher on my turnaround with Rodon Manoah. Wow.
And I'm going pitcher here also. I'm up now. A couple of the players that went. Chapman just went. Rendon, Cody Bellinger, Framil Reyes. And the 2 pitchers that I was looking at, 2 of them, Clayton Kershaw and Trevor Rogers. Now, I think, Chris, you're going to take I think you're going to take Trevor Rogers. So I could snipe you here because I have him slightly above Kershaw. I have him valued slightly above Kershaw, and Kershaw's over the injury risk. So sorry, but I think I will take Trevor Rogers.
I do not blame the snipe here. You know who I put in this same? I've got kind of in the same group here, and I don't know where you guys feel about it. Is Justin Verlander the same thing going with Clayton Kershaw? I think they're in kind of that same space. I'm thinking I want to, but what a wild team I would have if I were to go Verlander and Kershaw coming back. Ooh, I'm gonna go Verlander. I know there's obviously injury stuff in there, but you want to talk about, I mean, Kershaw exists the same thing where, you know, when these guys are pitching, it's kind of DeGrom-esque. When these guys are pitching, they're at the top of their game. You know, this is like top 10 SP upside if he's out there. And I think that's the big question. So I'm going to go with Verlander. And then coming back, let's see what pitchers go. No pitcher went in there. So the question, because Ravain, you gave me your playbook, and I know you want Kershaw coming back. But do I want Kershaw too. I want to battle you on Kershaw. I'm staring at McClanahan and Kershaw. The thing that holds me back on McClanahan is still the unleashing that the Rays are going to do. And I really think I need steady eddies, and I'm going to go with Kershaw here. Yeah, 113. I got the old AARP starting pitching staff so far.
That's fine. Listen, they're just because they're old, it doesn't mean they're not reliable. And these younger guys, you don't know if they're, how they're going to react to a shortened spring training. You don't know if they're more, some of these guys are more prone to injury if they're younger. They throw harder. You're getting the stuff that you know what you're going to get. Now Kershaw's a little bit different because he is coming off of injury, but you can say the same thing. You can say the same thing about DeGrom. So you can go either way. And now Ariel, you gave me the idea. I mean, I was looking at just looking at the catcher list here. Yasmani Grandal is just staring at me right now, and being this the way the rosters are constructed, I think Grandal fits best right now for me, so I'm going with him.
Thanks for taking the guy I was about to take, but all right. All's fair in a mock draft, I guess. All right, I got 2 picks here. Bunch of pitchers went, including Kenley Jansen, and I was looking at a closer here. There's not many really sure ones. Jordan Romano's still out there, and I'm going to take him right now because I think he's a stud. So
you know what, Ariel? I was going to say, I contemplated taking him as a third closer because we have normal pitching spots in here.
Right.
I gave it if he had come back to me, I would have taken him with the next pick, even though I've already got 2. Because, hey, listen, I put early investment in on closers. I'm going to be piecemealing some pitching. Why not dominate the position? And he's such a great value. It's a really good pick.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm staring at Joey Votto is probably the best guy on the board. Although Austin Meadows is out there. Now, Austin Meadows is a little bit lower, but it's a more premium position because there's an outfielder and there's a bunch of good first basemen left. So I think I'm going to go back to the well and get Austin Meadows, and now I have a nice third outfielder. So I'm going to go Austin Meadows right here. Gets me a little bit of everything also, and it lets me just pick. Again, I'm taking people who now I can take anybody. I'm just taking the highest value on the board for the next turn.
And I was just sniped by the computer. Joey Votto was going to be my guy, even though it's a corner, and he went the pick right before me, which makes it a little bit more complicated for me, so I have to figure out exactly what I'm going to do here. I only have one outfielder, but I think right now the pool of outfielders at this point in round 11 are a lot of the players are very similar, so I'm not really thrilled with what's going on there. I'm looking at the starting pitchers here, and there's another guy. I mean, I'm a little bit high on him. He's had shoulder issues before. I think I'm going to go with Pablo Lopez because he's got a lot of upside. He can strike out a ton of people. He's got a pretty good whip when he's able to stay healthy. So I think I'm going to go another pitcher here and have DeGrom, Trevor Rogers, and Pablo Lopez, all NL East pitchers on my roster.
Okay.
That made it pretty easy for me. I am going to snap up Nathan Eovaldi here for my old pitching staff. The over 30s. This is it's like an old person's community. Like you can only be over 30 to be in my rotation. Except and then I got sniped. I was going to take Gallen. I thought I could sneak Gallen coming back, and that did not happen. He was the second pick in the 12th round as I'm trying to piecemeal this rotation. So we're going to go right back to the well of the old guys. We're going to go with a New York Met, and we're going to go with Chris Bassett. It's the most boring pitching staff I've ever put together. But Bassett and Eovaldi and Kershaw and Verlander. Those are my 4 pitchers currently.
Okay, Ruvain?
Now it's on to me, and I need an outfielder here. I'm looking at the outfield pool. It's getting. I don't want to get to the point where my third outfielder is pretty low down on my list here. And a guy who I don't know if a lot of people are even thinking about that much is Marcelo Zuna. Marcelo Zuna is ranked pretty high.
I just put him in my queue.
There you go. He's ranked pretty high. He's going to get playing time. When he plays, he gets on base. If in this type of league, I can't say no to that.
Don't love any of the pitchers here. I do have a hole in third base right now. Outfielders, I don't see anybody I love. I have my relief pitchers, so I'm going to address the third base situation first here. And there's Josh Donaldson, and then there's Ryan McMahon somewhere there. Donaldson, I don't know. I'm sure he'll be okay in New York, but I'm going to pick the guy who just got a $70 million contract, who, by the way, is second base, third base eligible too, so I can move people around, might help me later on. I'll go with Ryan McMahon, who gives me some power and might not sit as much as Josh Donaldson will. So that's McMahon. And I think I'm going to double tap Colorado at first base and go. Is CJ Cron on the board? Oh, he's just taken. Okay. So
I had been staring at him too, and I was like, oh, you're getting him? Yeah, he went right after Ozuna.
Yeah, so I can't do that. That was going to be my pick. I'm like anybody here.
Yeah, there's not really many good players left. I agree.
No. All right, maybe I just need some volume of starter, and let's see who the best one on board is.
Why wouldn't you go for like another closer here? I mean, there's some still pretty good closers out there, and if you can't really find anything, why don't you look for a closer that has a job?
Yeah, 3 closers, 12-team league this early. I think I don't have to pay up for that. You're generally paying a premium for some closers. I already have 2 really good ones. I'm going to wait a little bit on that. Let's see. Pablo Lopez taken? Is Bassett? Eduardo Rodriguez is still there. I'm an Eduardo Rodriguez fan. Oh, was he taken also?
Yeah,
he
went right before your McMahon pick.
Oh, God.
Well,
right.
I tip my hand. I'm going closer my next pick. So
I see that. All right. I don't really love this pick, but no, actually, I don't love it at all. So I'm going to not take the pitcher. Usually I take a little bit. I do this a little bit. I have a little bit more time, but let's go with the hitting then, because let's just take the best hitter on board. There's Michael Conforto. I'm not really high on him anymore this year. He looks like a big value over here. You know what? Josh Donaldson was a high value on board, and I do need a corner, so let's go with Donaldson. Let's go with that. What the hell?
I had him near the top of my board. I like that.
Yeah, all right. So there you go.
let's see here. I wanted a closer, and one of the closers I wanted was Blake Trinan. He went right before me, and Miles Straw went right before me. By the way, guys, catchers, Wilson Contreras just went, so catcher pool is going to get very shallow very quickly. Just keep that in mind. But I think I'm going to go with, I'm torn between two closers. It's either going to be Corey Knebel or Taylor Rogers. They're basically both assured of having the job. Taylor Rogers may be traded in the middle of the season because if the Twins aren't that great, I know they just signed Carlos Correa, but if he may be traded, he's a lefty, he can be trade bait. I think I'm going to go with Taylor Rogers, though, because his numbers are better than Knebel. Knebel hasn't been a full-time closer for a while already, so I think I'm going to go with Taylor Rogers. I only have Class A right now, so I'm going to go with Rogers here. I'm going all closers here for the American League Central.
Had Trinan been there and you not taken him, I would have done that. So I liked your logic in that. I'm going to stick with pitching. We're in the 150s here, and I'm also a Corey Knebel guy as well. And let's see if I can, what I'm doing is seeing what I can sneak by. I don't think I can sneak much by here. All right. This guy's listed as a relief pitcher on here. I think he's going to get serious innings. Nick Pollack has talked him up a whole bunch. I'm a very big fan. And even though he's an RP, I might be able to manipulate a little bit. Like, let's say a closer goes down, I could put him in that spot. Michael Kopech at 152 for the strikeouts. And then if he makes it back, I'm going to tap pitching again. And let's see, Sonny Gray and Logan Gilbert. Oh, I couldn't have right in front of me. So that made it a little bit easier. I'm going to go with our industry darling, Patrick Sandoval, breakout Patrick Sandoval to add to my rotation. A little bit of youth.
Right.
A not 35-year-old.
Interesting. Now, see, this third base is very shallow, and I'm like already at the bottom of the barrel here for third base. I'm actually going to do a little bit of a reach here. I'm a big Brian Hayes fan. I think he was injured last year. If his wrist is fine, he's going to get playing time. I think he is a stud. It's a little bit of a reach, but I don't have a third base, and third base gets really shallow really quickly, so I'd rather get someone that I actually like as opposed to someone that I'm not thrilled with. So I'm going to go Brian Hayes here.
Okay. It goes to me. Now there's a lot of hitters who suddenly pop up here. There's a lot of outfielders I like. There's only one middle infielder that I like here. So I'm going to grab the middle infielder that I like in Gleyber Torres. I think he's going to have a nice bounce-back year. Take him as my shortstop. And I like a lot of outfielders here, so I'm going to take the top one that I think I like.
You're going to take the guy. You're going to take the guy from my queue, aren't you? Because we think alike. We do all these drafts alike. So I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to take a guess and think that you're probably going to go after Hunter Renfroe.
So, no, I'm actually going to pick up a little steal. This guy is raking right now in spring training. I'm going to go with Kill Badu, who's not at the top, but he's $2 lower than I probably top of my queue. So, Kill Badu is mine. steals.
Interesting. And all my outfielders were just taken by the computer, which is just wonderful.
Nah.
I had Dylan Carlson
Renfroe.
in my queue, and I had Hunter Renfroe in my queue. So I guess it's back to the drawing board. The pitchers here, I guess I can go another pitcher. I'm not thrilled with what's out there right now. I don't love the closers that are there. I'm a little stuck here. I think the guy who is going to give me the most value and the highest guy on our list right now, according to the outfield, is Jorge Soler. Again, I'm not getting stolen bases right now, but I'm trying to get the top value so I can try to accumulate as much value as possible.
All right. I was thinking about Soler, by the way.
I have got to fill out my hitting, and one thing I've done as of recent is I've kind of moved away from putting focus on stolen bases, which I don't love that I did, especially with buying some of them early on. So Bogman loves this guy, and I like him a little bit more in an OBP format as well for some stolen bases, just because he's a batting average risk, but at OBP it's a lot better. I'm gonna go Robbie Grossman on the other side of that Detroit outfield. Get me some stolen bases for my third outfielder. And then coming back, there was a big old outfield run, it looks like. Adolis, we had Conforto finally go. Another catcher went in there, Keeper Ruiz, as you guys have talked about, to continuously mention. And I don't love anybody that's around here. I may dislike all of them, as a matter of fact, the more I stare at this. But I have no pitching spots to fill. I've got all the power in the world, OBP. I feel like if I'm smart about this, I want to keep a focus on stolen bases. And middle infield is getting really garbage as well. Can save that guy for later. Ooh. Don't you hate it too when you're in a mock draft and you're looking around and you see a guy and you're like, ooh, that guy, but for later. And then you're just praying that he's actually going to be there. Let me just give one more over here. Gosh. It's like I want to trade this pick for like 3 picks in the next 2 rounds. Like, can I do that, please? I am going to go with, you know what? This is actually an interesting one. This is a prime example of something we talked about. This is a stolen base guy, an OBP guy, and no one cared about him because he didn't have a team. I'm going to go Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham with the Reds just got a spot. He was an OBP guy in the past, and I can get some cheap stolen bases, so why not?
And speaking of stolen bases, I'm going to be reaching again. I'm going to reach for stolen bases here. I need a shortstop and a guy who could steal up to 20 bases this year, Ahmed Rosario. It's a little bit lower on the list, but he's a shortstop, and shortstop is getting a little thin right now, so I think I'm going to go with him just to get some stolen bases there.
That hurt my soul. I love that pick.
Okay, up to me. I was going to go for Alex Verdugo, which would have been a really late pick, but he was taken here. All right, the top, I'm going to go with two of the top players on the board. I like pitcher John Means, who I think is a great whip. I love the whip pitchers. They moved the wall back. I don't know why his ADP didn't go up. It's crazy. And I can either go with Mark Canha or Adam Duvall. I love Canha's OBP. Gives me a little bit of everything. I love the round categories. I'm going to go with Mark Canha. Ruben.
I was looking at him. I was thinking, he would fit me pretty well, but then I'm looking at the pitcher slot, and there's a pitcher who we have ranked a little bit higher, who usually goes later in the draft, but, starting pitchers are getting to the area where you're a little nervous about them. I'm going to take a stab at Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan had a very good second half of the year. He's in a decent pitching ballpark, and the pitching drop is, you mentioned John Means, the drop is going to start to become very, very, very big soon for starting pitchers, so I'm going to go with Joe Ryan.
All right.
Already back to me. I need to fill this spot out. Not that I think people are going to be dying to get it. There's a couple shortstops. The shortstop pool is pretty gross, if we're being honest right now. And there are still a couple decent names out there, but you're talking from a very small pool. And I don't know which one I want. I'm going to go with, due to injury, we're going to do this. We're going to go with Brandon Crawford, who's a nice cheap get. And then coming back, I might fill back out the other middle infield guy just because, yeah, I mean, wow, we had a big old middle infield run here. And he's leading off for the Diamondbacks. He's another stolen base guy. I'm going to go with Josh Rojas. Actually just hit a home run today. Filling out some cheap, and he's position eligible. Second, short, and outfield here helps me out a little bit. Getting some more of those cheap stolen bases late. So now I've got Crawford and Rojas as my 2 picks.
And Rojas is so valuable because he plays everywhere. I had him on a couple teams last year just because so many guys got hurt. I just used him to fill in. It just made life so much easier. Now I'm going to pick a guy. I need a corner infielder, and for some reason nobody likes him. They said that he's in the best shape of his career. He's lost 20 pounds, I think, since last year. I'm talking about Miguel Sano. He's a big power hitter. If he can actually put the ball in play a little bit more, his OBP can go up a little bit higher. But I think I'm going to go with Miguel Sano because, again, he is the highest value. I need a corner, and that's what I'm going with.
Who goes before me is Urquidy, who I was about to take. Benintendi, O'Neill, Cruz, Happ, and Urias. I'm looking at Alex Wood as my highest pitcher. I need 2 pitcher slots, so Alex Wood is the guy. Also, good whip. San Francisco knows what they're doing. I like it. I do need a pitcher slot. I need a utility and then a bench so I can take anybody. And let's just see who the highest people are up there. Well, we got Brandon Belt is still there. Okay, I'll take Brandon Belt then. All right. He's just a big value, $10 value in this format. And the last round, I'll take it. Okay.
I like that. And another guy who gets no love is an outfielder, also from Minnesota. Maybe it's because he plays in Minnesota, is Max Kepler. He's very good. His batting average stinks, but this is an OBP league, so it's not as a big of a deficit for me to have him on my team. I need one final outfielder. He's the highest I have on my value, so I'm going with Max Kepler, going with value.
I like that pick. System's bogged down a little bit. I like that Kepler pick quite a bit as I still have one outfield spot that is open. This guy can be an albatross, and I think there's some inherent risk in it, but in OBP, I'm actually currently projected on this as the highest OBP, so I think there's an argument where, maybe you could avoid it, but this is the 30-plus homer guy who had a solid back end of the season, also qualifies as shortstop. I'm going to go with Eugenio Suarez here. I'm not feeling as much of a crunch with how I've constructed my OBP, and I think he can bounce back a little bit, and I could use some more power and RBI. And then it swings back to me, and I have still got to fill out my catcher, outfield, and then you guys said we're doing one bench.
Oh yeah, so catcher. I forgot about that.
Yeah, there's that catcher position.
Yeah, I mentioned it got so shallow so quickly that everyone just ignored it.
Wait until your last pick though for that.
Yeah, that's you should do at this point.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a couple outfielders here. You know what? Let's do this. We're going to bring the OBP back up after what I just did with Eugenio Suarez, and we're going to take Brandon Nimmo as my 5th outfielder, big OBP guy that will counteract a little bit of what I put down there with Eugenio Suarez.
And I have 2 pitcher slots and a bench slot to go, so I think I'm going to go pitcher here. The pitcher I was looking at, I know, Ariel, you love him. He's going to be, I think, the opening day starter for Texas. He has the ability to strike out 150 to 200. Yes, John Gray. I think this is, at this point when you're filling out your final spots, you can reach a little bit. This is where you should be reaching a little bit. Maybe get some upside on these guys because these are guys who you're going to be churning on your roster anyway. So I'm going to go with John Gray here.
Okay. Nimmo was just taken. I was going to take Jordan Montgomery, the pitcher, who looked pretty good. All right. Don't love the pitchers. Let me do the hitter first. That's the easier one. The 2 hitters I'm looking at, I believe, are Nathaniel Lowe, and the other was Jamer Candelario. And since I have, McMahon will be my swing guy if I need him, just for positional flexibility. Let's go for Candelario. I like it. I'll take him as my bench, actually. And so now I get a pitcher, and I need a pitcher and a catcher, literally, is what I need. Last 2 rounds. I can take the catcher now, but that's stupid. Just take it with the very last pick, and I'll get whoever the hell is there. So it's just starting pitcher, who the best guy is. Could also take a relief pitcher. That's an option, too. Matt Barnes is available.
Thank you. Okay, good, because I was worried you'd take the other guy.
Okay. Does that mean I can't take the other guy now?
No, you could take him. He's fine.
Yeah, I can do that, or I can go for another starter because I don't see any starter that I like. So what the hell? Everyone's taking a couple of relief pitchers. Let's go Matt Barnes in Boston. I think he's the guy over Whitlock. Whitlock's not going to really save, so it's Barnes, and maybe he was injured down the stretch, and that was why that he wasn't the closer.
That's the guy I want is Whitlock, because Whitlock could be a swing guy. He could be the closer. He could start. He's got great stuff. He was electric. I saw him in person pitch a couple times. He is really good. I need one less pitcher spot. I don't love the other pitchers here. And I'd rather have this swing guy. You never know. He can hit as being a starter. He can hit as being the closer. So I think there's upside there. So I'm going to go with Garrett Whitlock.
Okay.
So since we've got the bench, I am sitting here trying to see, do I want to go pitcher for my bench spot or do I want to go hitter for my bench spot? And I don't think it's going to help the projections, but oh well, who cares? Let's go with exactly what I talked about before, and I'm going to take Spencer Torkelson.
All right.
We talked about Spencer breaking camp right around 248. That's where I like it. And then we will come back.
Final pick.
Yep, taking my catcher, and my guy's still on the board. I'll take Sean Murphy.
Oh, there goes my pick there.
Okay.
Boom.
I think. See, this is the point. I'm looking at my team. I have a bench spot. That's all that's left. I'm looking at my team. Where am I the most weak? I'm probably the most weak in the middle infield, especially shortstop. There are no great shortstops out there left. It got very shallow very quickly, so I'm not thrilled with that. I mean, I have my eyes on maybe getting a Kiner Falefa because I know he's going to get at bats. Nicky Lopez, he gets on base, he gets you stolen bases. So I think I'm going to go with Nicky Lopez just because I've been light in stolen bases the whole time. He can help me at shortstop, and I can always move around Ahmed Rosario, who's eligible in the outfield. So I can, if I need stolen bases for a couple of weeks, I'll go with Nicky Lopez and Ahmed Rosario in the outfield. So I'm going to go with Nicky Lopez here.
All right, we'll review our teams in just a second. My last pick has to be a catcher. There's Narvaez, Carson Kelly, Kirk. Let's go with Mike Zunino. What the hell? All right, there we go, and that's the end of there. I got an A minus. Projected standings are. Let's see, loading.
They gave me an A plus. I said 97 out of 100.
Ooh!
Wow! I only got a B plus on this one. It didn't like me quite as much.
All right. Yes, Ruvain, you got the score of 97 in first place. I'm at 94. Welsh in third place at 92. So we beat everybody else. Let's just go through our roster. Why don't you go first, Welsh, and just read off who you got?
And one of the most hilarious things I just want to point out when you use the draft wizard, it then goes into the projected standings. There's a bunch of interesting things where you can click into expert opinions on like who liked your draft and who hated your draft.
Yeah.
And they'll also have the one guy that liked you the most. And guess what? Hot take. Chris Welsh of Fantasy Pros liked my draft the most of any of them.
You know who likes mine?
Ariel Cohen, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's the best part about it.
Joe Pizapia, thumbs down, the worst one for me.
Okay.
Who likes mine, by the way?
Go where it says expert opinions, and you can see it.
Expert opinions.
Yeah, expert opinions will show you. And
I'm not part of the Fantasy Pros family, so I can't see that.
Well, no, anyone can see it. Anyone should be able to see those. It's just if you're not logged in, or I don't know, you should be able to. But Dalton Del Don always hates all of my drafts, so that's been pretty standard. All right. So my team, I had Sean Murphy at catcher. My infield was Paul Goldschmidt, Ozzie Albies, Brandon Crawford, and Chris Bryant. My corner middle was Eugenio Suarez with Josh Rojas. My outfield, Acuna, Alvarez, because he qualifies, Robbie Grossman, Tommy Pham, Brandon Nimmo, and DH, I've got Giancarlo Stanton. My pitchers, Verlander, Bassett, Kershaw, Eovaldi. I have Kopech, Sandoval, and then Edwin Diaz and Ryan Presley as my closers, and my one bench guy was Spencer Torkelson.
The hitting is very good. The pitching's a little suspect with Verlander, Kershaw,
You want to know the
risky.
funniest thing about the projections?
Risk.
Like-
The projections loved my pitching. I was top 5, I think, in 4
Yeah.
of the 5 categories, and I was 6 in the other. And my hitting took a real tumble in the middle, where I was near. It was you and I through the first 10 or 12 rounds of projection on hitting, and then it tumbled. The only one I think that's a top 5 for me was OBP. I think I was 2 or 3 overall in OBP. So
The thing about projections are that a lot of projections are always very high in the innings for these pitchers. Like Verlander, I don't know, is he going to have 150 innings? Maybe, but usually these guys come in on the under, so I always suspect on those injury guys. And I am a projections guy, and I know that it comes through. ATC hopefully is a little bit on the light side on these guys, but it's always still too high for my taste. Ruvain?
Well, my team, I have one of the top catchers in Yasmani Grandal. Corners, I have Pete Alonso at first. I had to reach a little bit for Cabrian Hayes at third because it got shallow very quickly. I got Miguel Sano for power and upside. I always try to go stolen bases for the middle infield, and that's exactly what I did with Javi Baez, Ahmed Rosario. I have Nicky Lopez on my bench as a possible another shortstop in there for stolen bases. My other middle infielder is Brandon Lau. You got power there. I really like my outfield. My outfield is all power, power, power. Bryce Harper, George Springer, Jorge Soler, Marcelo Zuna, Max Kepler. My utility is Jonathan India, who's a good 15-15 guy. So I think my hitting is pretty balanced. And my pitching, this is not too shabby. DeGrom, Trevor Rogers, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, which is my 4th starting pitcher, which I'm perfectly happy with. Relief pitchers, I got Clase and Taylor Rogers, 2 of the top tier, possible one top tier closer, 1 mid tier closer, and I have John Gray for upside, Garrett Whitlock for upside. So I have those positions where I can just dump them if I need to and pick someone else. So I'm actually very happy. I think my team is very balanced.
All right, mine, I've got a free catcher in Mike Zunino. My corners are Matt Olson, Josh Donaldson with Ryan McMahon at corner. The Olson pick is good, and those other guys are above value. Middle infield, Trey Turner, Trevor Story, Gleyber Torres. Can't argue with that. The outfield, Aaron Judge, Austin Meadows, Joey Gallo, Akil Baddoo, Mark Canha. Very balanced categorically with Judge at the top. And Brandon Belt, pretty decent utility. Pitching, no studs, but Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, and Alek Manoah, good top 3. John Means should provide some good ratios in there. I've got Alex Wood as another starter, and my closers, I've got Matt Barnes at the end, but I have Liam Hendricks and Jordan Romano. Pretty good. And on the bench, Jamer Candelario. You never know when you can need him. All right. Well, did you have fun, Chris? Was this fun for you, Ruben?
I always have fun. I always have fun mock drafting. I always have fun spending time with you, Ariel, and I appreciate you having me on. I think my first appearance on your show, so I really appreciate it.
Second appearance.
When
you
was
were
I
on? You were on with Bogman once.
When? I don't believe it. Oh, well, it was with Bogman.
We talked about Hall of Fame. We remember that conversation?
Yeah, well, I meant me, Ariel, not that Bogman
Solo.
character.
Okay, first
Yeah,
solo.
First solo. That's
that
true.
Bogman
That's
guy.
True.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's great. I love doing the mock draft. I've been killing Pizzapia and Bogman and anyone we've been having on. This was probably the lowest grade I got in any of the Fantasy Pros ones. So it's a good test. It's good, and it's like a constant thing I tell everybody is go in different places, listen to lots of different podcasts, try out different things, mock draft, try out different strategies, pivot a little bit. Like, would I want to go into a season with this pitching staff? No, really wouldn't. Did I get the closers? No. You want to experiment and you want to do this as much as possible for your live drafts, which may have happened or you may be coming up this weekend. So I'm glad that I got to have a little bit even more of a challenge with both of you guys.
There you go. And hey, it's our second draft in the same week with you and I, Chris. So that's
you're right about that. Yeah, you're right about that.
And this draft was a little bit of a challenge because both you, Ariel, me and you, we think alike. We've been working together for so many years, for over, I say 10, 15 years. We're doing this together as teammates. So I know who you like. You know who I like, which puts us at a disadvantage because we're fighting for the same players.
That's true. Well, hopefully everybody who listened to the show got something in terms of our decision process. Obviously, there were some points where we had to pause and think because this is lightning fast here. I mean, all the other picks we didn't have to wait for. We didn't have time. It was just automatic. But hopefully you got something out of it. Please let us know if you did enjoy it, and hopefully it'll help you with your own drafts in 2022. Before we let you go, Chris, why don't you just tell everybody where we can see all your stuff and hear you outside of being a guest on the Beat the Shift here.
Yeah, I mean, all the places. Obviously, my home, bread and butter in this league. In this league, made it to the Final Four in the Baseball Pods tournament.
I know.
Got our butts whooped by CBS.
So did we.
I will say, 2 straight years, and In This League podcast made it to the Final Four, which I'm very, very proud of. Prospect won last year, which is my Prospect solo show, and then In This League making it this year. We've got tons of stuff over there. We're going through what we call our Hell Week, which is like, if you've ever played football, they have a Hell Week, Oklahoma's and stuff. We do an episode every single day. It's our rank episodes if people want to check out, plus a backlog of incredible amount of episodes Ariel has been on. And then I'm now on Fantasy Pros, going to be 3 days a week on leading off with Joe Pisapia, but I've been doing 2 for the last, couple weeks or whatever. So you guys can check out. I'm on a gajillion shows right now, but follow me on Twitter, Is It The Welsh? It's the best place to follow what I have going on. In between all of this, I am over on the backfields and going to spring training games and trying to get video. I will be doing it this weekend. I did it today, and I will continue going, trying to get all those little nuggets. So just follow me, Is It The Welsh? And that is the easiest place to find all of the chaos and craziness that I'm doing.
And Welsh does live in Arizona, where he purposely missed Ruven and I when we were at Arizona for the AFL, right?
And the same, we talked about this. We were literally at the same game, and we didn't get to each other. It was wild. Like there was one time where it was like, I'm like, hey, I'm at the hotel, and you're like, I'm at the stadium, and then I went to the stadium, and you were gone, and you weren't there. It was crazy how we missed each other. But hopefully, we have to rectify that this next year for the AFL if you come back out.
There you go. All right, Ruven, how about your stuff?
You can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I'm tweeting out injury updates fast and furiously as they're coming now. And in about a week or two, my article on Rotoballer, my weekly article on Rotoballer for injuries will be coming out. And you can catch that during the season. It comes out usually on Saturday to prep you for your fab for Sunday night.
Awesome. All right, I'm Ariel Cohen. You can read my stuff over at Fangraphs, Rotographs, on Sportsline, at Rotoballer. ATC projections being updated every week. Check them out. It was, I got to tell you, last couple of weeks were fast and furious because the number of changes in a period of time over March was insane. That's not something I've ever had to deal with, so thanks for bearing with me, and we got some good stuff out for you guys. And draft season is upon us, so want to wish you guys good luck. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY, and of course, listen to me right here on the Beat the Shift podcast, presented by Fangraphs. Once again, thank you for listening to our mock draft episode with Chris Welsh as our guest. Thanks so much for joining. And to all of you out there, enjoy and have a great fantasy draft season. We'll see you next time on Beat the Shift.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.